Hey, everyone. Before we start today's show, just want to let you know you can become a part of this podcast. That's right. Go over to jointhefoot.com. See how you can get involved. We're an independent podcast bringing you fantasy football news every day of the week. So head over there, jointhefoot.com, and see how you can join us.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Happy Monday, everybody. Well, not everybody. Not everybody. Really? This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. I am Andy Holloway, joined by Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright.
Good morning, Foot Clan.
And a man formerly known as Jason, who currently has a deeper voice than usual.
Yeah, I'm both sick in my physical body and sick in my heart and soul.
Hey, Mike, you've seen Winnie the Pooh before, haven't you?
The cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What character does he remind you of this morning?
If I had to suggest a character from Winnie the Pooh, I would go with Eeyore.
I can assure you that Eeyore has way more optimism.
And not just because he's double stuffed. Eeyore, I think Eeyore's stuffed, isn't he?
Yeah, they're all stuffed.
Well, he has a lot more optimism and life than I do this morning.
It's just great that your voice is recovering from this illness and is this deep because you just sound as sad as you look.
Oh, man.
So the reason Jason is so depressed, I have to give some context for this.
Has nothing to do with my sickness.
No. Well, yeah, you're right. It doesn't. Fred Jackson was released this morning. Okay, that's the beginning of the tale.
Breaking news.
That is the beginning of the story.
First of all, before we go into the story, that's ridiculous. Let me just say that.
Your entire
roster is dead of running backs. And I said this.
Yeah,
to
but he didn't do anything in preseason, Jason.
Well, until he first touched the ball and ran for a 40-yard touchdown. And then got called back. It's not a touchdown. Well, let's give him the ball again. Have him leap over 100 guys in the air like Superman and score a touchdown. He's really good.
Oh, and he's no longer a Buffalo Bill. And the rest of the story is that we had our big league draft yesterday. This is the major league that we play in and that we've been in for 10 years, and we all bring banners of our teams and hoot and holler and mock everybody, and it's the big deal. And Jason drafted LaShawn McCoy in the first round. Okay,
yes,
that's the beginning of the story.
The end of a tier.
He also drafted Fred Jackson in the fourth round.
No, I didn't.
35, 34?
That was Vincent Jackson.
I'm sorry. He drafted Vincent Jackson in the fourth round. And he got to around the seventh round when Mike had drafted Fred Jackson. And it hits him that he really should insure this LaShawn McCoy pick.
Well,
or give the context.
Yeah, so we were I've got a co-owner as well, and we were targeting Fred Jackson the whole time. We knew he'd be there at that next pick, and we knew we had to have him. LaShawn McCoy being possibly not even there for week one, and Fred Jackson being talented, we knew we had to have him. So we were targeting him hardcore, and, of course, Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright, took me out and grabs Fred Jackson. And so our hearts crush and sink. But later in the draft, we see a perfect opportunity because even though I'm not super high on Torrey Smith, this is late in the draft, like 8, 9, 9th round, and we're a keeper league, so it was really like 3 rounds after that. And Torrey Smith was still on the board, who I don't have ranked too far behind Vincent Jackson. So we decide, hey, I got a good deal for both of us because it's a great deal for you, Mike. I'm going to trade Vincent Jackson from the 4th round for Fred Jackson from later. And what happens, but I go home, and then I study the Bills game and watch how amazing Fred Jackson is. My heart soars. My voice could sing. I was so happy with the trade. And then I wake up, and I have a string of ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha's on Slack because Fred Jackson has been cut.
Unbelievable.
And so I lost Vincent Jackson and Fred Jackson in one fell swoop.
I was driving my son to school today, and I saw that news come across the world, and I just laughed as loud as the day is long. I just laughed forever. So that's why we have a double-stuffed Eeyore this morning.
I didn't really understand the sad music. I thought it should have been happy music.
Of course you did. You traded nobody for Vincent Jackson. Unbelievable. All right, we got a good show for you. It's fun. It's draft season. We've got some news and notes. We're going to talk preseason week 3, and we're going to mix in some mailbag today. So it'll be a fun one. We have some more stories from our draft that we'll share with you that were entertaining. a little bit scary.
Well, and just in some context of these are tips of a live draft of mistakes that each of us felt like we made.
Yeah.
Which mine are 0 mistakes, but the other guys made a
Right,
few.
of course.
We
Yeah.
discussed mine.
Yeah, and Mike was wearing these sunglasses that just made him insufferable during the entire draft.
Hate blockers.
Hate blockers. All right. If you want to get a hold of the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can also go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. You can submit questions there. You can get the ultimate draft review product there. You can also interact with us on Patreon. That's at jointhefoot.com. You can visit us on YouTube and subscribe on iTunes.
And see Eeyore.
And see Eeyore in person.
Mm-hmm. You can see I'm growing a
Eeyore beard? That's a depression beard.
This is no, actually, this is a beard that I will be growing on my neck in a disgusting fashion until every ultimate draft report is done.
Oh.
There are many of them.
Yes, we should say that. If you've ordered an ultimate draft report, we're working on them.
Yeah, we're working hard.
We're working through. We've got through a bunch of them, but they're coming in hot and heavy now that it's draft weekend. So stay tuned. I put a thing on there. It might take a couple days, but we'll get them to you. And I thought you were going to say you're not going to shave until Fred Jackson finds a new home.
That's what I thought he was going to say.
Hey, either way, I'll have some celebration.
All right, let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
Well, little bookkeeping note here at the top. Kevin White is officially on reserve PUP. So put him in that IR slot if you're in a dynasty. Otherwise, cut him. Rams coach Jeff Fisher said that Trey Mason is questionable for week 1. This is kind of just too bad, I think, because we've been touting Mason as a good Lev Bell replacement for that first and second week. But obviously, if he goes and pulls his hamstring, he's not going to do you any good.
So monitor this with Mason and Gurley. Otherwise, we could be on Benny Cunningham watch.
Yeah, honestly, for week 1 and 2, that's a good name to remember. Out of Packers camp, a big old sigh of relief because we've already lost Jordy Nelson. And then kind of the headline news right when the preseason week 3 games began was, oh no, Randall Cobb's down. Randall Cobb's going to the locker room. I saw a picture of Aaron Rodgers with the logo from Straight Outta Compton, and it said Straight Outta Wide Receivers, and I was like, yeah, pretty much Devontae Adams, my goodness. But Randall Cobb's MRI came back. It was negative. No broken bones, no broken collarbone, which was the first fear. Only a sprained AC joint in his shoulder, so no guarantee that he's playing week 1. You should keep that in mind, but he is going to be okay, which is really good news for their playoff hopes. Out of Browns camp, Browns coach Mike Pettin confirmed Sunday night that Duke Johnson was concussed. So
here's why I wanted to talk about this. With the Duke Johnson flyer hype has been building, and I'm also thinking this is a possibility. They don't seem to really like Crowell or Terrence West up in Cleveland, so maybe it's Duke Johnson. The problem here is Duke Johnson was always nicked up in college games, getting out, missing plays here and there. The durability, the size is a question. First game, concussion. Yeah. So this is just it. I'm not completely jumping off board of the fly because it's still a late round flyer type guy, but that's a big concern.
Yeah, our good friend Adam Azer, he always said that in the offseason. He said he's so talented and he does great, but he's just always injured, and you see it so far, in the NFL.
And if you know anything from fantasy football, if you've played more than one season, certain guys are just prone to injury at times. So you just have to be aware of that. And in that situation, you have to own so many backfield guys to even – it's not like one handcuff is going to save you if Duke Johnson's not on the field. Falcons have signed Julio Jones to a 5-year, $71 million extension. Just a teeny bit more than Dez and Demarius.
Yeah, how happy is he?
I guess he's pretty happy. That's a lot of money.
$71 million happy.
And then breaking kind of this morning was news out of Redskins camp, which I think is better for the Redskins, that Kirk Cousins is starting week 1.
It's the right move to make.
Hey,
I mean, you watch the team. And
I'm going to keep my eyes on the news now because I don't know if RG3 is long for that team.
I am setting phasers to stun.
Oh, is Cousins back? Captain Kirk is back.
Not yet, but he is. Captain Kirk is, if he's in a good matchup, he's a good streamer.
I do have some.
Oh, my.
Breaking news.
Tyrod Taylor officially named the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, do you know who
There
that's
you go.
great for? I've been
Fred
Jackson.
Everything comes back to Fred.
That's all I'm going to
But the
contribute
good,
this
the
entire
good news
show.
is he is at the end of the year he's eligible for Social Security.
So Tyrod Taylor, he, to me, instantly becomes an interesting quarterback too.
For sure.
He can move.
we
If
pointed
you watch him, he can move with those legs, but he likes to stay in the pocket, and he's been very accurate. 12 for 13 or something last game.
Yep. And it is good for LaShawn McCoy as well when he comes back.
And if you're looking who the starting kicker is for the Steelers, I should mention this because Sweesham went out, and then Hartley went out, and now Josh Scobie's the starting.
This week's Pittsburgh kicker.
Yeah.
We should have a segment
That's a
drop.
segment.
Yeah.
This
So,
week's Pittsburgh kicker.
I can record our segment drops this week while I'm sick.
that's true. Do we want to talk preseason week 3? Are you guys ready to
Let's
talk?
do it.
Yes.
Let me hit you with a quick 3 questions. 3 quick questions.
Okay.
You guys, I'm gonna say the team. You tell me who the running back is. Okay.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna go through 3 teams that are kind of fighting. So pretend the situation is this: you have to start this guy when you say the name.
Okay.
That's the guy you have to start from this team. Atlanta Falcons.
Fred Jackson.
No.
No, all right. Devontae Freeman.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Fred Jackson.
Actually,
No,
there was
honestly,
a news that just broke that said they're not interested in Fred Jackson.
Man.
But you're ruining the spirit of this round, which is to give me a name that's starting. So
Joe Randall.
Falcons, you said so you said Joe Randall for the Cowboys.
Darren McFadden.
Is that a
Is that
Ron Burgundy?
Ron Burgundy?
It's there. That is a mess.
So Mike doesn't know. Thanks for nothing.
No.
All right, Cleveland Browns.
The
Cleveland
news
Browns.
that I'm reading is they like Darren McFadden a lot. And Cleveland Browns, which week?
Week
This
1.
is week 1.
Okay, well, I'm just
You guys
verifying.
suck at this.
Gotta
by
go-
the way. You're
gotta-
supposed to give me one name. You're debating everything.
Crowell.
Okay.
Fred. No, Crowell.
Okay.
Crowell.
All right. Let's talk about preseason week 3. This is the dress rehearsal, so to
dressed?
speak. The dress rehearsal.
I heard a T on there.
Hey, you put it in there. This is kind of starters get to play longer. We get to see more out of guys. We're not paying so much attention to the stats as to what the offenses look like. We know they're vanilla defenses, vanilla offenses. But let's go ahead and start with the Patriots versus the Panthers. Give me the headline news here. Who jumped off the page to you? Who didn't look so good?
The Carolina Panthers did not look good to me on offense at all. The one guy that stood out by a mile was my boy Greg Olsen. He looks like he could have 200 or 300 receptions this year. I mean, honestly, there's
Water
no one.
bet?
Yeah, there's just no one else to throw the ball to. It also showed me the need for Devin Funchess because they were lacking options. Cam didn't look too bad, but he looked terrible because every wide receiver dropped every pass he throws, and he throws too hard. Cam, if you're listening, soften up, okay, a little bit. But their offense did not look that good to me. Greg Olsen is going to be a PPR machine if you're in a PPR league for a tight end, and you're in round, I would even go 5 now, but especially 6, grab Greg Olsen.
You grabbed Greg Olsen last night.
Yeah, as my 6th, and it changed my team. I loved it.
And I watched a lot of that game, completely agree with you. The need for wide receiver was there. We can't necessarily project Funchess to be the same as what Benjamin was last year, but my goodness, he's going to have the chance to be.
Yeah, there's
And out of New England, if you are trying to get that pass catcher back, it looks like it's Brandon Bolden now.
Oh, in week 3.
It's just classic Patriots.
Well, Deion Lewis has been shining. Now
Has
they're
he?
saying James White's in trouble, and then they're going to cut Travaris Cadet.
Yep.
So
And Bolden,
good luck.
Bolden didn't just play passing downs. Bolden was getting early work.
Here's the one
snaps
thing
as well.
I'll say about Bolden. He has been with the team long enough to know that the team trusts him in some capacity, right? He's not just a brand new face. So, yeah, good luck figuring that
I would
one
also
out.
say the defense of Carolina looked amazing.
Yes.
So just as far as the trenches, I don't really focus on the scheme and the whole, because everything's vanilla defense right now. But you can kind of trust watching offensive line and defensive line who's stronger, and their D line looked really strong.
Another game I watched was the Chiefs and Titans, and honestly, this is more validation to the mini bets that I've
Yes.
made. Jeremy Maclin has looked outstanding in the preseason. He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He was 7 for 65 and a touchdown in about half a game of work.
And this is what I will say for Macklin, where what I'm seeing on the field, was not what I was expecting from the Chiefs, which is something of a actual modern offense where they're figuring out different ways to get a guy a ball. I mean, they put Macklin in the backfield. They're giving him bubble screens. They're force-feeding the ball to Macklin, which is what they really should do. I just didn't have the faith that they would do it. So Macklin is I'm buying more into Macklin.
When I was in our draft last night, I had Sam Bradford as my quarterback. And late, I had to decide on a second guy, okay, that I wanted to stream with him or have as insurance for when he gets hurt. I was looking at Tom Brady and Alex Smith, and I drafted Alex Smith.
And it doesn't look too bad because he's got weapons there now. You know Jamal Charles is going to do some things out of the backfield catching the ball. And Zeus looks
very good, and he'll be used
Travis
a ton.
Kelce, it took about 5 guys to tackle him when he got in the open field. It was like he just kept plowing forward until enough other jerseys could like locust around him and bring him down.
He would have had another touchdown because he had a wide open play. Smith was just kind of moving in the pocket and short-armed him by like 20 yards.
And quick note, Kendall Wright looks like Mariota's boy.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
So, and he's a guy, I'm guessing, who's going undrafted. I'm not saying he's a guy I'm running out to throw on my bench, but if you got a deeper bench and a PPR, Kendall Wright has been successful in that role before, and Mariota, he looks like the go-to guy right now.
He is without a doubt now, scheme-wise, their number one wide receiver. And we're drafting third wide receivers from some teams way ahead of them.
Exactly.
And if you're in a PPR league, you're going to get all of those extra targets and receptions from him. So I really liked him. Last note I would say on that, Bishop Sankey, it didn't look good to me. Every time they got in any remotely short yardage, they took him out. If it was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, he came out every time. So I just don't think he's going to get any touchdowns.
Ken Wisenhunt did say that they might bring in another back as well.
Man, don't
because
go
David Cobb's a little hurt though. All right, last night's game, the Raiders and Cardinals. This was there was no room to run in this game for either team. One note that has been mentioned: Latavius Murray hasn't caught a pass yet in preseason. I don't expect that to continue.
No,
but just a strange fact.
It is a strange fact. And hello, got his first action of the year of the preseason, and he caught a couple passes.
Yeah, he did get in there, and it was very funny when he was drafted last night because half the room busted out the halloo. Saints and Texans. What did you guys see from the Saints offense? I mean, Breeze has looked good all preseason.
Yes, he has.
And the Texans.
And as soon as they got close in the red zone, you saw the absence of Jimmy Graham for them. They didn't have a guy that a go-to, just, hey, we need you to button hook and box out Jimmy Graham, and then we're going to throw you the ball. Maybe they can get it figured out. You got a point?
Well, I'm going to ask you this. Is there any universe where you're drafting Brandon Coleman over Marcus Colston?
Yes.
Because Coleman is now on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, and Colston's coming in 3s.
And
did you know that?
That's exactly where I was going to go, because Coleman is very large. If he can build that
in charge,
if he can build that dynamic with Breeze to be the button hook guy and just be the tall guy in the end zone, he could start racking up some touchdowns.
He just has not produced much in the preseason.
Yeah, that is the concern, is we haven't seen it, but the camp reports are great. Sean Payton has talked him up. Someone has to catch passes there.
Yeah, the sad thing is I just don't think we know who it's going to be. Is it going to be Ben Watson? Is it going to be Coleman? Is it going to be Josh Hill? Is it going to be Marquise? It's just a lot of options. Is it going to be Ingram running him in? So it's just something where we don't have the answer from preseason. We're going to have to, take gambles.
And Spiller will come back.
Yep.
And Ingram looks good.
Yes, he does.
His cut looks very strong.
Jason, tell me what you saw from Denver, San Francisco. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, the Denver-San Francisco game, I would say that the main things I saw, I wasn't super happy with the offensive line in Denver. They looked, in fact, by not super happy, I mean it was disgusting. And I was really happy with them signing Evan Mathis. But man alive, I've never seen Peyton they snap the ball and he's taken down. It was really scary to me from a standpoint of such a great offense that could have real problems with that offensive line. So that was the main, it was just trench work. And it could be the fact that they were working in Mathis and maybe there were some miscommunications. It really looked like the center position. The center was blown up play after play after play. So it might be a matchup-based thing look for, but that was my main takeaway from that. And also, Carlos Hyde looked like the lone bright spot for the 49ers.
And I got to ask,
second week in a row.
I have to ask the question. This is what the people, I'm sure, want to know. Colin Kaepernick, what have you to say about Colin Kaepernick? He has looked delightfully bad.
I don't know what to say about Colin Kaepernick because I've slowly moved him down over the last few weeks just because of other players. But he didn't look good last year either. And yet his end-of-the-year stats ascended in many categories. So I don't even know what to make of it. He's looked bad in the preseason. I will plainly say that. He has not looked efficient. There's been almost no kind of rhythm for that offense at all. I don't know if they're figuring it out. I don't know if it just won't exist. But, yeah, I have to admit Kaepernick has not looked good.
What's amazing about Kaepernick is because I'm sure most people, including myself a couple years ago, were very high on him. I think it was Ron Jaworski said that Kaepernick is going to be the best quarterback of all time.
Yep, he did.
He likes getting in the news.
Well, that's also very true. But we all were so high on what Kaepernick could do. It's what happened?
Well, they haven't looked like they're going to bring Vernon Davis back into the fold to the degree that I had hoped. And the defense is going to be bad. The offense is Torrey Smith's fresh, and I don't know what's going to happen.
It could take him a few games, but the potential is
he did run
still
the
there.
ball still. That's the thing. He can look that bad, and I think he had like 50 yards rushing.
Then you're good to go.
So you're fine.
Yeah.
So Seattle, San Diego. Seattle has not scored an offensive touchdown in the preseason. Have they?
I'm not sure.
I don't think they have. They have not looked super good at all.
I bulleted this game with 2 quick points. Stevie Johnson looks great. Man, that he just is getting open and making plays. And you watch Seattle. So Lynch got the first 3 snaps, I think, went to Lynch. It was a run, a dump to Lynch, and then a run, and then they took him out, and they were done. And then you watch the Seattle offense go, and you go, that's why they gave him $10 million.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot
Wasn't
in the
it
last
12?
few weeks about how bad the Seattle offensive line is, and it is amazing that they don't appear bad when Marshawn Lynch is in the game. He just burst through. He's like his own offensive line. He's honestly like he is his lead blocker. He just bursts through everyone. He's definitely still got it. So
yeah, no doubt. All right, let's talk Bills and Steelers. Martavis Bryant, despite the suspension, he didn't let it get him down.
Oh man, he's really good.
No ER on the field for Martavis Bryant.
And I want to have a quick note for people listening with Bryant. It's just a 4-game suspension. I moved him down on my rankings because you have to project these
adjust
things, and I didn't highlight him. Right? You can highlight some guys in the bottom who have tremendous upside, so you remember to pick those guys. So
you're talking about in your draft last night on your draft board.
Yes. I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. Yeah, so in your draft board, make sure you highlight him to start thinking about him. Because when he comes back, if he comes back, but when he comes back, he's going to be great.
He is going to make a difference to that entire offense.
Yeah.
If you have Big Ben right now, or even possibly Antonio Brown, you might not be super happy with week 1 and 2. They might be fine, but just remember why you drafted them. You didn't draft Big Ben to be the quarterback of a team without Martavis Bryant and without Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, Big Ben by week 3 could be on the waivers, and that's a great time to pick him up.
Yeah, especially if somebody got him late and they're playing somebody else that they like. So let's go through 2 quick other games. For the Bills, they obviously, every quarterback there was almost perfect for the day.
You know who was great there? I'll pass, but
but yeah, they used the tight end. Charles Clay got a big touchdown. The offense moved the ball. The defense is going to be great. Jets, Giants.
Yeah, that man. You were hoping that week 3, like, okay, this is the moment that we can get some clarity on the Giants running backs, and they pooped all over that for us fantasy players, and they said this is a mess.
No clarity.
Yeah, because all 3 had their moments where they really shined, and it says to me that if
I didn't put them in. You said Falcons. You both said Freeman. Cowboys, you guys were split. Randall and McFadden. Browns, you said who? Crowell?
Yeah.
And so what do you say for the Giants?
Rashad Jennings is starting. If by starting you mean who's taking the very first snap of the game?
Who you would start if you had all three on your bench. That was the question.
I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, if you had these guys on your bench, who do you put out there week 1?
I would still do Jennings.
Andre Williams.
Okay. So, yeah, it's still a mess there. The Jets, they look all right. Chris Ivory looks good. Brandon Marshall's getting targets. They have a good defense. Like, I like the Jets.
I am really intrigued by the Jets this year because I have a tendency to look at them as not a great team. But I'm looking at them and I'm like, well, I really like their defense and I really like some of their offensive weapons. And I'm starting to wonder, like, I'm intrigued. I'm really curious to see what you've got here. Also, interesting note, Eric Decker was returning punts, and even though he muffed one, if you get yards in your league for punt returns, that gives him a boost, and he's already a valuable target for where he's going. So I like him. Chris Ivory looked good, and there was a Zach Stacy sighting.
That little screen pass where he jumped over the guy at the end?
Yeah, but interesting to note, they only had Chris Ivory in the game for part of the first quarter and then took him out. That's why you saw those other guys. They're resting him, that he's going to be their workhorse.
All right, last game to talk about here before we move on to the mailbag is the Lions and Jaguars game. TJ Yeldon got his first opportunities with the Jaguars. He certainly didn't get much on the ground. That's a pretty stout front. Didn't look special on the ground. He did catch a pass, put an open field move that looked pretty good. He scored a touchdown. Any initial impressions on Yeldon?
He didn't look special, but the offensive line, I think, is very, very upgraded from what they had last year. But with the upgrade is you have a bunch of new guys playing together. An offensive line is a unit. They need time to
cohesion,
to meld to each other and know what the strengths and weaknesses of your brothers are. You know, what is this guy going to do in this situation? Once they get all that locked in, I think Yeldon can be good.
And from the Lions side?
Golden Tate, man. As soon as Calvin goes off the field, it's Golden Tate time.
If Calvin's not there, he's a top 12 wide receiver for sure.
Yeah. Yes, and he's good.
And one other note on this game, we would be doing a disservice if we didn't mention how good Blake Bortles looked standing in the pocket. It is a vanilla defense, and that's the one thing we've got to caution ourselves with. You know, he wasn't tricked. He wasn't seeing, crazy designs to get those interceptions. But when it came to a regular defense, he was cutting up the field, strike after strike, perfectly on target. Looked like he had command, and he had some good runs too. So
you don't draft a guy that high that you expect him to make a leap.
Yeah.
Season by season.
Well, he looked bad last year. He looked nothing like last year. So yeah, I would say that gives us.
And there was also I don't know if you guys got the tweets of the Fantasy Reaper. People were worried about Allen Robinson.
This? Every injury in the NFL is a Fantasy Reaper sighting?
Somehow you took Fred Jackson from me, Andy.
This is like the boy who cried wolf or something. You got to save this situation for when I've talked about a guy. Because I didn't look up the number, but I'm guessing it's in the thousands of players that get hurt every year in the NFL.
Well, you know what?
Or hundreds.
He was
high hundreds.
He was okay. He was okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay. I appreciate it, Foot Clan. We our listeners, you guys are very entertaining to us. Thank you guys for all your tweets and everything. If you guys want to actually help be a part of this, we talk about our Foot Clan all the time. If you want to be known as an official Foot Clan member and part of the show and help us out, you can go to jointhefoot.com and you can actually help us over at Patreon. There's a lot of cool we're spending a lot of our time at Patreon with our patrons. So check that out, jointhefoot.com. We've got an exclusive episode up there on the top 10 mistakes people are making that is only for our Patreon.
Is any of those drafting Fred Jackson?
That was number 11, but we cut it out.
All right.
It's trading for.
Mailbag.
The laughing mailbag.
Laughing all the way to the bank with that one. All right.
The best part of this is I think we all like Vincent Jackson, but Jason was he was the tip of the spear of Vincent Jackson on this show.
How many times, let me ask you this. How many times have you gotten a question from a listener of this show via email and answered in the affirmative about, talking up Vincent Jackson?
Probably 30 or 40 times. and that's why I drafted him. I put my money where my mouth was.
I mean, didn't you even say that you said that on the radio? You've said that here.
Yeah. I like Vincent Jackson. His value's great this year. And I would be happy to have him back. Mike, what do you say? Will you give me Vincent Jackson back? And I will give you Fred Jackson. He could go somewhere. Just trade backsies.
This will be great when the best part about a podcast is something's going to happen today. And lately on this show, something happens
Yeah.
immediately after that will, like an hour after the show, he's going to re-sign with the Bills, and this will all be moot. That's what will happen. So,
I will be happy.
all right, let's answer a question from the listeners. I like the questions coming in now because we got trade questions. People have rosters. There's some new stuff going on. Trey in Santa Maria, California said, with Trey Mason.
Wait,
Is
Trey Mason asking a question about himself?
He could be. I really don't know because he didn't give his last name. With Trey Mason questionable for week 1, should I drop him and take a flyer on Ty Montgomery or Stevie Johnson? What do you say?
He says his running backs right now, Jeremy Hill, Mark Ingram, Frank Gore. So he doesn't have a need. You know, a lot of times people who have Trey Mason, they have that need because they drafted Le'Veon Bell. Here, I would drop him because I don't think he's going to be of value to you with those running backs you have and pick up someone like Stevie Johnson.
I would not drop him because the wide receiver core here looks fine. If you're going to do it, I would take Stevie, but I always like to just have running backs just stockpiled on my bench.
Yeah, you know, looking at his roster, I didn't read his wide receivers. I agree, but I think there might be a better value at running back that maybe you could drop Trey Mason and pick up a Cameron Artis-Payne or someone who will have more value as the year goes on versus just value in the first few games.
All right, Dave from Moorhead, Minnesota said during his keeper draft this weekend, he chose to draft Jordy Nelson in the 9th round.
Sorry, bro.
His plan is to put him on. No, this was.
I think that was.
He did it on purpose. 9th round. He wants to put him on the IR spot and keep him all year, so he will only cost a 7th round pick next year. Pretty smart.
Yeah, I
think. Is this a good idea?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking this for keeper leagues. When do I take Jordy? And if you can get him in the 9th, and so he's now a 7th round keeper for you next year, that's home run, man.
We had a guy draft Kelvin Benjamin with his last pick last night. We have a 3-keeper league just to throw him on IR, just because maybe he needs him the next year. I don't know if I'd keep Kelvin, but Noah in Ocean City says, is giving up Frank Gore and Delaney Walker for Travis Kelce too much?
Yes.
Yep. Don't you think?
Yep, I do.
Yes, we like Kelce a ton, but there is a line, my friends. Javier.
When the reason Frank Gore can be an RB1.
Yeah.
If at worst for this year, Frank Gore is a middle tier RB2, right?
And
Yeah.
and
Unless
if
he's
somebody
injured.
asked me this question and I could interact with them, I'd be saying, okay, what does your roster look like? Before the question, I mean, if Frank Gore is your RB4 for some reason because of your league or an RB3 and you need Kelce, I don't know. I probably still don't do it, but at least some context would help. Javier in Cooper City, Florida said, he just sent a trade and wanted to know what we think. He would be giving up Carlos Hyde for Melvin Gordon and Steve Smith Sr.
Are you sure it's not Xavier?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I'm not sure.
You are the master of pronunciation.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean-
just saw that. What was the question? I'm sick. I get a free pass.
Carlos Hyde for Gordon and Steve Smith Sr.
He has Calvin, Hopkins, and Evans on his team. Devontae Adams, Aguilar, Allen Robinson. Probably no. I probably just don't do it because I don't need Steve Smith.
Yeah,
and straight up, Carlos Hyde for Melvin Gordon, I probably take Hyde. So
I'll take the upside of Hyde.
I think both have upside.
But
That's ridiculous.
I'll take the
You're
upside.
ridiculous.
Yeah, they both they have equal upside. I think Hyde's floor is lower, or his floor is higher.
Well, that was just a confusing mess all the way through.
But I would not do it because he doesn't need Steve Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's stay with Hyde. Brandon in Syracuse, New York, just recently completed our PPR draft on Friday. Here's some guys that went undrafted that he's intrigued by. Brandon Coleman, Tyler Eifert. He currently has Philip Dorsett and Owen Daniels on his roster. So, would you recommend him hitting the waiver wire before the season and picking up either of those guys?
Eifert, I think I would do it because I like Eifert more than Owen Daniels, but that's so washy. You know, Owen Daniels could be great. I agree. Jason had the point during our tight end show that Owen Daniels can be very good in that offense because he's the guy. All the snaps are going to Owen Daniels. There was the Owen Daniels versus Virgil Green kind of debate for a while, and that is completely put to rest. It is Owen Daniels. So I don't mind just holding on to not making a move. But Brandon Coleman, I would put Brandon Coleman on my team.
All right, I want to share a little story from the draft last night. If I had a drop for fantasy confessions, that would be what I hit right now. So this just shows what can happen in a draft, even to the people telling you what to do. I have Julio Jones on my team. He's one of my keepers. I get to about the 6th round in a keeper league, so 7th, 8th round, and Matt Ryan's staring at me. And there's a ton of other quarterbacks I like on the board. And I was tantalized by the idea of just combining Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. And I struggled with it for minute after minute after minute. And finally, after Mike played some Vanilla Ice music in the corner of the draft room, I took Matt Ryan and instantly regretted my decision for the next 3 or 4 rounds.
Made a terrible choice.
You needed that running back at that time, right?
I did. And it was just a bad decision that grew out of like the emotional tie of having that combo. And luckily, at least in my opinion, I salvaged it because what I did was I traded Matt Ryan like 2 rounds later along with another draft pick and drafted Sam Bradford later in the draft. But it just goes to show that doesn't matter the situation. I mean, everything changes in the draft. And for me, Matt Ryan looked really, really juicy, and I went against almost everything I've said about waiting on a quarterback in our main league just because of wanting that combination, because of the fandom.
I think
piece
that's
of me.
A perfect example of make your plan before the emotions are high. Because, it's kind of a silly thing that we all get very emotional and charged during a draft, and then we start doing
that music was so good.
We start doing rash things. But if you know what you're doing going into the draft, and just remember, okay, I had this for a reason, that these are kind of guidelines I wanted to follow. I don't mind reaching here and there, but especially on quarterback, if you know that there are so many quarterbacks left, don't do it in the middle rounds.
There's still guys on waiver.
It was ridiculous. Like, it was an instant regret. I put the name in, and I'm going, what is that?
But one of our draft tips that we have for people that that you showed and I showed as well, even though my Fred Jackson didn't work out because he got cut thing, is that just because you draft a guy higher, once that's over, where he got drafted makes no difference, and you can't put that value to guys.
Fix it.
Yeah, fix what you got to fix, and don't just hold on to guys because you drafted them high. Do what's best for your team always. It doesn't matter.
Wait. This would be a good time to say that I did all that on purpose to show you the kind of mistake you can make during a draft.
And how you can overcome it immediately.
It's like an after-school special.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back here tomorrow, so you can tune right back in. Get some more news, notes, and information in the fantasy world. Visit us on Twitter at the FFBallers. Thanks for listening.
Go to jointhefoot.com. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter at the FFBallers.